Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with the eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Hello, all you food fans out there. Welcome to another episode of Heaping Spoonful. In fact, it's our 77th episode. So here's to the last 77 and 77 more to come. So I'm Kelly Bass. I'm your host on Heaping Spoonful. I have really enjoyed getting the chance to talk with so many great chefs and restaurateurs from across the Mid-South. I appreciate Benny Keith Foods giving me that opportunity with this podcast. And I will tell you, I have learned that talking about food is much more enjoyable than writing about it, which I did for more than 30 years as a restaurant reviewer for 2 Little Rock, Arkansas newspapers and later for a couple of local magazines. Today, our guest is John Harpool, executive chef and general manager at Bocca, a popular Italian restaurant on College Avenue in Fayetteville, Arkansas. So welcome to Heaping Spoonful, John.
Happy to be here.
Glad you are. Appreciate you making the trip down. You explained we're recording this on the Monday of Thanksgiving week in 2022, and he's already done his duty, gone to the in-laws in Russellville for Thanksgiving, and then he's come down to hang out with his mom and then headed back to Northwest Arkansas. So let's start at or near the beginning. We just talked about your mom, and I know you grew up in Little Rock, and she still lives here. Were you one of those kids that stood by your mom in the kitchen and said, hey, tell me how to cook stuff, or were you not into it too much?
I think it was more passive observation than anything. I came from a big family. I'm one of 5 siblings.
Okay.
Both my parents came from one of 5 and one of 6 sibling families. So everybody had to be able to fend for themselves when it came to dinner in some regard.
Right.
But I can't say I was ever really actively trying to learn, but just picked up the basics along the way. And wasn't really until somewhat adulthood that I really started to take a liking to the kitchen.
Right. First off, it was just you had big family and lots of cousins and lots of aunts and uncles, and you needed to fend for yourself if you wanted something to eat. So you grew up here and you went to college as many folks do at the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville.
That's correct. Got a degree in English from the U of A.
Cool.
It was really the summer after my freshman year of college. I came back down, had a summer job lined up in Little Rock. I was going to sell clothes at Joseph A. Banks suit store.
I have bought some there, and I'm an English major too, so we have some things in common.
But I was looking forward to being back home for home-cooked dinners and get away from the cafeteria food.
Yeah.
And it was just my mom and little sister at the house at that point, and they just didn't really prioritize dinner like we did growing up. And I just wasn't having it. So it was really when I took that 3 or 4 weeks before my job started, and I started making dinner every day. And that was my first little glimpse into like, hey, this is kind of enjoyable. Hey, I might not be just terrible at this, kind of have something naturally good going on.
Yeah.
And that was, my first
So you just
good amount of
grabbed
time.
some recipes and started making some dinners?
Yeah, and started getting more and more adventurous, wasn't playing it safe, was making doughs from scratch and doing all the crazy stuff I could get my hands on. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, and you were good at it, so that's really cool. So when was so you sold suits and then you went back to school. When was your first job in the food business?
It was right when I was about 21 years old. I got a job as the campus culinary intern for Chartwell's Food, who was a food management company for the entire U of A campus.
Okay.
All of the stadiums, all the cafeterias, every single concept.
Wow, that's a lot of food.
It was. Not a glamorous as title as it ended up being. I basically just got put in the kitchen in that first dining hall that I ate all of my freshman meals at.
Now you were making them.
Yeah, I spent about 8 months there. But it was a great place to talk about learning how to just get your stuff done. You're cooking for upwards of 1,800 kids sometimes in a 3 or 4 hour span. So they're not going to wait for those slots on the buffet to be empty. So
you learned how to cook in mass.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, at that point, I mean, you'd already loved cooking, for your mom and little sister and yourself, and now you're cooking for about 900 times that many people. Did that just feel like a job, or did you think, hey, man, this is something maybe I can do?
Well, even before the job at Chartwell's, I was the frat guy barbecue chef.
Right.
I kept everybody fed. I was the guy cooking at the tailgates, and I always enjoyed that. And, having a bunch of 20, 21-year-old college guys around, they're not going to complain about whatever you're making. So I got to try a lot of different stuff. But I'm probably a rare case where I got my first job in a professional kitchen very much thinking that it would be my career.
That's cool. And again, you showed that you liked it and you were good at it. Were there other stops between that on-campus job and Bocca, or did you go straight there?
I went that April before I graduated college. I started on Easter Sunday at Bocca, and there were a few detours after that, but I did go straight from Chartwell's to the Bocca kitchen. Yes,
right. And I see that it was that Bocca was opened between Christmas and New Year's in 2015. Interestingly, in a former Backyard Burgers, but I guess it was ready for being redone by Jill and Mike Rohrbach. I guess they were identified in the article I found as owners of Flying Burrito, which is a brand that I know. Or that they're still owners, but maybe have partners now?
It was originally open, Mike and Jill, awesome couple, and just veterans of being restaurateurs. With them, Keith Bermilo, who was a longtime chef, and actually Benny Keith rep, and DSM opened it with them, and it was very much his Italian background, Northeastern background that inspired the menu.
Oh, cool.
And now my wife and I are actually in the process of becoming minority owners.
Oh, sweet.
As well.
Oh, that's great. So did you walk in and just get a job working as a line cook or as a sous chef, or what were you when you first got there? Just kitchen? Yeah,
I was hired as what's called the garde manger station. So desserts, salads, cold apps, all the stuff that is pretty. There's some technique to it, but it's pretty low skill during service. You don't have to worry about burning anything or cooking anything. But that was my first taste of like what something close to a brigade style kitchen, a real restaurant line felt like. So just that whole aspect of it being new to me was really exciting.
Yeah, that's cool. So, and then you said there were some. How long were you there before you went off to do something else?
So I was a line cook from that April to the end of that September. And then I was promoted to sous chef. I served as sous chef there for about the next year. And then that was when I kind of still hung around a little bit, dropped down, did some prep shifts and stuff like that. But that was when my buddy Jay Hill and I went out to open our food truck.
Okay, and tell us about the food truck. And first off, how did you get that opportunity? I guess you had a friend that was wanting to do it too, and you all found a truck available. And what was the concept for that, and tell us how that kind of came to be? So,
yeah, Jay was a longtime front of house employee for Bocca and had some manager roles with us as well, and just became a really good friend. His Uncle Phil, actually had an old food trailer that he had used for some community service cooking for the church and stuff like that. And it was just sitting in his driveway, and he told us to do something with it. So
okay.
It's basically a free truck and a blank canvas. So we spent the next probably 8 to 9 months tearing it apart, fixing it up, getting all the equipment in there we needed. And to honor him and thank him for giving us that opportunity, we actually called our food truck Phil's.
Oh, that's neat.
After him.
Yeah.
And we did a little bit of everything. Our base catering menu, like when we were hired for specific events, was a sandwich menu. Just things like patty melts, club sandwiches, a cool variation of an Italian sandwich called an Italian pork. Just pretty simple stuff like that with house-made chips. But if we were stationed somewhere for a long time, which we were at a few different breweries in Fayetteville, specifically Crisis Brewery, an awesome brewery if you're ever in Fayetteville, we noticed that, people were coming back, but I was like, we're seeing the same regulars of this place every weekend, so why don't we start changing some stuff up? So we do our sandwich menu, and then the next week I would do an all tacos menu, or I'd do an all burgers menu. And it's kind of not only to give them something different, but also to let me play around a little bit as well.
Yeah, that sounds fun. And so how long did the Phil's truck last?
We ran Phil's for about 18 months. It was pretty short, fast and furious little venture.
Right.
Which is kind of expected. I mean, we look back and laugh at it. We were both 24 and opening a business together and just really dove in head first. But right around that time, we were taking a little time off during the cold winter months where there wasn't a lot of work for food trucks. And I had landed in the Bocca Rogers kitchen at the time when it was open. And my buddy Jay was starting to settle down with his girlfriend and was looking for a 9-to-5. Right about that time, the job became available back in Fayetteville. So
At Bocca and Fayetteville?
Yeah, so timing-wise, everything just kind of worked out where it made the most sense for us to sell that project and move on.
Yeah, had much changed while you were gone, or was it pretty much still the same operation?
In terms of like menu and operation, it was pretty much the same as I left it. There's definitely some work to be done from a consistency and organizational standpoint when I got back, which, I looked forward to the challenge.
Sure.
I'd already been there as sous chef, so, I could see the things that I would have done differently than the guy before me. And so I came back ready to.
Did you come back as, again, sous chef, or did you come back as the executive
When I
chef?
came back to Fayetteville, Bocca, I came back as executive.
Okay, so you, all of a sudden, it was totally your kitchen.
Yes.
Did you so again, from the point of view of the customers, menu same, everything kind of same, you just were working more on operational things in ways to be more efficient and run the kitchen better?
Yeah. Not only efficiency and consistency in the kitchen, but consistency on the plate.
Okay.
As well as a little more variety with what we were offering in terms of specials and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a good way to shake things up.
Yeah.
So from the top of the menu to the bottom, it's clear Bocca, and I guess always has been committed to a real in-house philosophy. First off, all the pasta is made at Bocca, as is the bread. And, there are quality food service products. We're sitting here at Benny Keith. They have pasta, they have bread that are available. And I couldn't imagine that very high percentage of Italian restaurants in Arkansas make their own pasta. But good for you all in doing it. And so was that just something y'all's like, this is just our baseline commitment to what we do?
Yeah, that was an incredible quality put into place before I even stepped foot in Bocca. And It was part of what made me want to work there. Is I walk in and I don't see stacks of pre-prepared stuff like that. I see bags of flowers and cartons of eggs and stuff like that. And I kind of knew I was in a place I needed to be.
Yeah.
And it's just one of the fastest ways that you can separate yourself from the pack right off the bat is to offer that fresh pasta. Yeah, it's a little more labor intensive. At the end of the day, it actually, between labor and the ingredients, costs you about the same as going to buy a box of dried spaghetti, but on the plate, it couldn't be more different.
Oh, I know. I agree. And I've been lucky in August to spend a couple of weeks in Italy. And, of course, every restaurant in Italy makes their pasta because you won't survive if you don't. But what a difference. But, again, you're right. I've had friends who make pasta at home, and it's laborious. I'm sure you get it down pat in a restaurant. And then I'm guessing that same commitment extends to the meatballs, the salad dressings, the pizza crust, desserts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You buy ingredients and you make stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to take a short break here on Heaping Spoonful. We'll be back in just a minute with John Harpool of Bocca in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Heaping Spoonful. We're going to continue our conversation with John Harpool. So, Bocca's menu, and I advise everybody to get on and check it out. And they got a nice website. It's easy to navigate, and it'll make you hungry like I was when I looked at it. So, but there's still variety, even though it's not a huge menu. There's 5 pasta dishes, 3 takes on Italian styles of chicken, and then you offer steaks, and then there's pizzas. So let's start with the pasta. Of those 5, is there 1 or 2 that stand up above, or are you pretty equally selling all that stuff?
Oh, it depends. This time of year, people are a big fan of our house-made pappardella with the beef and pork ragu.
Yeah,
it's
hearty.
It's good and hearty for this time of year with the cold weather rolling in.
Yeah,
and that's probably has to be my all-time favorite pasta on the menu as well.
Yeah, and then I see you got a ravioli that looks really good.
Yeah, that was actually, we took that to a wine dinner charity event we cooked at a year ago, and most of those events in town, we see a lot of regular faces that we know.
Sure.
They made it very clear to us before we left that if that wasn't on the menu shortly, that they were going to be very upset about it.
Yeah. So you tried it out for an event and realized now we got to start making ravioli all the time, which again, you're back to the labor-intensive part of stuffing raviolis for sure. So tell our Heaping Spoonful listeners about wood-fired lasagna bolognese. What's wood-fired about it?
So we do it a little differently. So it's not the most traditional bolognese sauce. We actually use our meatball mix that has all of the filler and everything, and as well as Italian sausage. We use that, and we actually large dice it. So the lasagna, it's not very dense. It's light and airy. And then we just bake that in the oven like normal, but when we pick it up to order, we cover it in a little bit of sauce and cheese, and we plop it right in front of the fire in the wood oven.
Okay.
Gives it a little bit of caramelization on the outside, a little bit of a flavor from the smoke.
Yeah, that sounds fabulous. And then, I mentioned that you do very traditional Italian takes on chicken. So you got marsala, piccata, and parmigiana, which are all very different, what they look like and what they taste like. Tell us a bit about each one of those. So, I know that beautiful brown marsala sauce with the wine and the mushrooms.
Yeah, with those, we really just try to keep it true to what Keith grew up eating in Philadelphia and New Jersey.
Yeah.
Just real simple Italian-American dishes. The marsala, it's just a really simple dredged chicken breast that gets pan-seared. And then you build a nice sauce with the mushrooms, the marsala wine, a little bit of stock. And then we actually add a little bit of veal demi-glace to our marsala, too. It just rounds it out, adds this really nice, deep richness. That's a crowd favorite this time of year as well.
Yeah, that's another hearty one, too. And then piccata, a whole different take with lemon and a little crispness to it.
Yeah, piccata's probably our number one selling chicken dish, probably close between that and the Parmesan. But, again, just really simply, we pound out some chicken nice and thin so it gets nice and tender. And then we just build a nice sauce with the shallots, capers, lemons, white wine, a little bit of stock. Finish it out with a little bit of butter to emulsify it. Toss it with our pappardelle pasta. It's just the simplicity of it, what it really is what makes it nice.
And then the Parmigiana, of course, you got tomato sauce and things working with that.
Yep, and we do that the same. We use our mozzarella that we make in-house to top that, a little sprinkle of Parmesan, and then that's another one that gets plopped right in front of the fire in the wood oven.
Yeah.
That's our salamander. Gets the cheese nice and melty and bubbly and a little bit of caramelization on top. Serve that with some spaghetti with our house marinara. Yeah, can't go wrong.
Sure. Well, as I worked down the menu, I really wasn't expecting to see what I saw at the bottom of the entrees. Although my experience in talking to folks for all these episodes of Heaping Spoonful tells me that you can never really go wrong offering steak. You're going to have steak fans all the time. And yours sound, again, you got the wood-fired option, and then they're aged steaks. Are steaks very popular with you, and what cuts do you all offer generally?
Every single day at the restaurant, you can get a filet, and it has become our number one all-time bestseller above any of the regular other menu items. It's funny, we became an accidental Italian steakhouse. What started as the owners ordered themselves a couple of roast to cut steaks around Christmas time. And a couple of customers happened to see him and catch wind of him. So people were asking, how can they order the steaks? And then it just snowballed from there. We bring in the entire tenderloin. We use great beef. It's Creekstone from Arkansas City, Kansas.
Good stuff.
Benny Keith ages us for about 30 to 35 days here. So it's already beautiful by the time it gets to us. We do all the butchering in-house. And then there's just no steak like one that gets cooked on a cast iron skillet inside that wood oven.
Yeah.
It's just almost impossible to replicate.
So there's always filet, and then do you all have some other cuts that you offer?
We do, yeah. And that leans more towards my specials for weekends. We'll bring in New York strips or some aged ribeyes. I'm also become a big fan of trying to offer some lower price point steaks for the customers of cuts that I really believe in that don't have a lot of popularity. Like I've been ordering these beautiful flat iron steaks from 44 Farms, which is a great cattle ranch in Texas. And once I make the sale and explain to them about how, when it's butchered properly and cooked correctly, how just tender and great it can be, but with a much more powerful boost of beef flavor.
Yeah.
Once I kind of get the customers over that hump, I've made a couple believers out of some of them.
Well, I keep an eye on specials for places and like to buy a large amount of steak and then cut it and vacuum seal it and keep it in the freezer. And I did that with flank steak. And I cooked a couple last night in the cast iron skillet. And again, inexpensive cut, flavorful, and more tender than I expected.
Absolutely, yeah. It really does come down to how you treat it. And that's how you cut it before you cook it, how you cut it after you cook it.
Right.
And what I love about it is don't get me wrong, I love a filet, but I don't necessarily want my steak to be perfectly tender every time. I want it to have some of that chew and texture that I expect from a great cut of beef. Then you add that with these great muscles that are all around all these bones, so you get the minerality of the beef and a really strong beef flavor. I think it can be a really, really special cut of meat when it's treated correctly.
Filet's easy, and it almost cuts with a fork. I'm going to break away to something I didn't even think about asking you, but so you guys are 7 days a week, and you're 7 days a week dinner only.
Correct.
Which, again, has its challenges in that nobody wants to work 7 days a week, but clearly it's worth it for you all being open on a Sunday night, because if it's like Little Rock, Sundays and Mondays, sometimes you don't have a lot of choice.
Absolutely. Yeah. We definitely see nice business where you wouldn't expect it on those weekday nights because of that. And it's much like that in Fayetteville, too. Sunday, Monday, you don't just have a ton of dining options.
Right.
And, sometimes it feels like it would be nice to just shut the doors for a day. And even though it's my day off, to not have to think about it, but it's worth it, and it's just also incredible for us turning over product. There's never a question of the freshness of what we're prepping and what we're serving. So
good point. I was somewhere recently, and I they're closed on Mondays, Tuesdays, and I was kind of dismayed that on a Sunday something wasn't available. They're like, well, we're not going to buy a bunch now because we're not serving it until Wednesday.
Absolutely.
So you're moving through it all the time. Let's now talk about pizza. And again, I like your approach to pizza because other than margarita, which is an all-time classic, all your pizzas are build your own. So you have 5 meat options, 9 veggie choices, and even 4 cheeses. And again, those cheeses, you can get pretty good cheese in a bag. You make them. So these are 12-inch Neapolitan style. So I'm figuring that means cook quickly at a high temperature. Talk about pizza.
Yeah, pizza's really something that I was very interested to learn. Walking into Bocca, I had never, maybe a couple times at home, but I had never stretched out a dough in a professional kitchen or tossed a pizza or anything like that, let alone run a wood-fired oven. Yep. So I've dedicated a lot of time when I first joined Bocca to learning that aspect of it, because talk about something that sets you apart from other chefs. If you can throw a pizza pie, if you can run a wood oven, those aren't something you see in every single kitchen, But we have changed the dough a couple times now, and before we were pretty traditional Neapolitan, and then we were realizing that people weren't really quite getting it, that it's a softer pizza, so we kind of have a hybrid now. It's a fast-setting dough. We can go from the mixing bowl to portion to being able to stretch it out in about 5 or 6 hours.
Right.
And we use a high-gluten flour from General Mills, so it's really easy to create a lot of stretch quickly. And then it also has a relatively high olive oil content, so it gets nice and crispy on the inside of the oven.
Yeah.
And then from there, we just approach it really simply. We had a couple other specialty pies over the years, but we realized that when it came to pizza, people really just wanted to make it their own anyway. So we have the classic margarita, and then any topping you could possibly dream of, you can throw it on a pizza.
Sausage, mushroom, and onion for me, but I'll eat other stuff, but that's kind of the way it goes. And again, the commitment to making, so I know obviously there's mozzarella, that's your king of pizza cheese, but what are the others, and how often do you make it, and did somebody just know how to make cheese, or did y'all learn all that? That
was our owner, Keith, through and through, the stuff right. he grew up doing in different kitchens throughout the years. Now, I can't say that when I walked into Bocca I had ever made cheese before. And then I was stretching fresh mozzarella every single day.
Yeah.
We'll occasionally do the ricotta for the pizza line. So you basically have to take your milk and get it nice and hot and salted, and then add your acid, and then hang it in a cheesecloth. And then you got to make sure that the moisture content's correct. But Yeah, it's definitely labor intensive for us. The mozzarella is the king. It's something that we do every single day. Not only does that cheese go on the pizzas and the parmesans, but that's also the cheese that gets breaded and fried for our fried mozzarella appetizer. So, and people know it and people look for it. So
yeah, that's great. And again, just as I said, you can't really go wrong with steaks, and you've proven that by what was the owners wanting to make some steaks to have themselves to now we sell more of that than we sell of anything. Pizza pretty popular?
Yeah, I would say most people come to us for the steaks and pasta, but we do a decent amount of pizzas as well.
Yeah, there's always going to be a pizza fan in the crowd. I don't see desserts listed, but I'm assuming you have them?
We do. We just use those as verbal sales for the servers.
Right.
All the time we have our house-made tiramisu.
Classic.
Absolute classic.
Right.
Old recipe that one of our owners had been making for 25 plus years. One thing on the menu I'll absolutely never touch just because it's perfect the way it is.
Right.
And then we have a cheesecake as well. And we actually treat it a little bit differently. And we brulee the top. And then it comes with some sort of sauce or topping that changes seasonally. Right now it's coming with a salted caramel drizzled over the top. And then that's one thing too I play with as well in terms of specials. They always expect those two, and then I kind of have fun with it outside of that. Become pretty popular with the olive oil cakes and things like that. It's a great classic Italian cake. It's just different texture than you're expecting from the olive oil, and you get the nuances of the earthiness and the nuttiness from that. And then you can do any sort of fruit component or topping or chocolate.
You want to, right?
You want.
Yeah, well, very, very cool. And then, again, I'm a menu peruser, particularly when I'm researching for these podcasts, but you have family packs, which I'm guessing that started in the COVID-19 times, but basically your entire menu only, it looks like ravioli and steaks are all I didn't see on there. And you can get a family pack serves 4 at a really good price. Is that something people still pick up?
Yeah, it comes in waves, that's for sure. Now it's almost used more as like a catering vehicle than it is
that makes sense.
Anything else. The occasional family will pick one up, but it's instead of just one here and one here, it's normally like this last week I had 10 of them go out on one order.
Right, for a catering, right.
It's a really easy way to not overcomplicate somebody trying to order a catering. They know they can call or go on our online ordering system and just punch in however many family packs they need, and everything's going to come ready for them.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Well, before we wrap up, I want to talk about your cocktail program because it's obvious a lot of time and thought have gone into this because you didn't just half-ass it at all. So you have more than 10 specialty cocktails. Many are really creative. And for those who want something a little more straightforward, you've got plenty of spirits choices, more than 20 whiskeys. And you bring that must bring you a lot of love from the crowd, and particularly the cold weather makes people a little thirstier for a little nice whiskey. Is that something else you figure out, or do you have somebody else that handles all that for you?
It is. So coming out of COVID, we really saw an opportunity with some people that were departing from the restaurant industry, and some we just saw it as a way to restructure the way we did management and, for lack of a better term, to trim some of the fat. And one of that was with me taking over the front of house. And with the operation the size of Bocca, I like it that way. It's just, I feel like it's a more unified vision and a more unified operating pace on a day-to-day level. So part of that was once I got my footing, handling server training and all that stuff, I went to the owners and I said, it's time that we refresh this cocktail menu. And they were like, okay, well, we're not mixologists, so if you got ideas, go for it. And
super. Just
dove head first. So now we do 2 cocktail menu changes every year. So we'll do a spring-summer menu and a fall-winter menu. We just rolled out our fall-winter menu 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's going well so far. Get to play around in the kitchen with it a little bit more, making different cocktail shrubs and flavored syrups and a lot of stuff like that. So I think it's really just the house-made component of those certain things in the cocktails have really elevated the drink menu.
Well, I'll tell you, people appreciate it because, you can come in and get a vodka and cranberry juice or something, but just the people appreciate a creative cocktail. And it's really, I mean, it's become kind of the thing, I mean, there's so many places that, Rocktown here in Little Rock is, a distillery, but they also have an amazing cocktail program. They're right in their bar area for sure. And I'll tell you, I love what you're doing with wines. I've never seen a restaurant where every wine, other than some bubblies, or a nice bubbly, is available. Anything that's available by the bottle is also available by the glass. And that, I'm willing to pay, because I love Jordan Cabernet. I'm willing to pay that price because it's a quarter of a bottle. It's a nice pour. I'm sure that's popular. I'm sure you also have a way to keep an open bottle fresh longer than it would if you just set it on the shelf.
Yeah, we do. We have a special wine fridge that it actually has nozzles that pump nitrogen into the bottles to keep them fresh. Yeah, some of those upper price bottles make me a little nervous sometimes.
Sure, right.
But for the most part, we're probably 85% wine when it comes to our beverage sales. So it's moving out of the bar. So I don't really lose too much sleep over it.
Sure.
But that's been another fun thing to kind of adapt, is being more involved. And it's almost like a social thing for us. I'll sit down with Mike and Jill, or Keith and Mike, and the people will come in and bring what they're selling that day, and we'll get to pick the new wines and things like that. So that's been another fun aspect.
That's all about continuing education and professional development, my friend.
Absolutely.
You got to jump in there and taste them.
Big fan of that, and I'm a big fan of independent research when it comes to progressing yourself in your field. Which I try to
agree.
I try to instill that in some of my younger guys, that there's never going to be one kitchen where you learn every single thing you need to know. As much as I want to be an environment that teaches them and trains them and helps them along the way, if you don't take it upon yourself to further yourself outside of the workplace, you're never going to get there.
That's a very good point. And you mentioned earlier when you had Phil's, your food truck that you set up at breweries, and man, Northwest Arkansas has got a plethora of really great breweries, and I'm so glad when I go to Northwest Arkansas and see so many of those beers, and you all are at restaurants, and you all are the same way. You've got some seriously good beers on your menu.
Yeah, absolutely. We hold the one tap for the classic Italian beer Peroni.
Oh, I love Peroni. Good lager. Nice.
Aside from that, all the other ones, I won't let it be anything outside of Northwest Arkansas.
And good for you. I mean, they deserve it, and that happens a lot down here, and I see. The brewery community is a great community, and they take care of one another. I've been somewhere where Lost 40 lent something to Stone's Throw, or they're all just trying to get help each other out, and I go places and see all those beers on tap. It's really it's good. Well, listen, I appreciate you, John, for being my guest today on Heaping Spoonful. Good luck in all you're doing at Bocca and your expanded role, and I know it's satisfying for you to be able to kind of put your arms around the whole thing and see how it all fits together. So I told you before we got on the air here that we'll be coming up for a basketball game, and you're number one on our list of where we're going to come eat. So look for me later. But I'll tell you, thanks to everybody for listening to Heaping Spoonful. We put out new episodes. We post them on the first and third Tuesday of each month. So keep an eye and an ear out for those, and consider going back and checking out some of the ones you've missed. Thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.